Welcome to Blowing Solutions Wide Open, where we're talking about all things spiritual, as well as creating new systems in the area of healthcare, finance, government, education, and new environmental practices. My name is Addie Halkin. If you think that you have ideas to share or knowledge in any of those areas, please feel free to email me at blowingsolutionswideopen@gmail.com, or you can put the word guest in the comment section of this video, and I'd love to talk to you and potentially have you come on this channel and share with people what you know. If you have ideas around helping humanity or helping the planet in subjects that I did not cover, that's great too. I'd love to hear about it. And if you're not somebody that enjoys being on a podcast, but you would like to get information through, please feel free to leave that in the comment section of this video. That'll do great. Also, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all those things if you want to see more content or you have an interest in getting alternative information out to more people. And today I am actually really happy to introduce my guest. Let me tell you a little bit about him. His name is Aaron Josiah. Sorry, I was afraid I'd say it wrong. So we're going to go with Josiah. He is the founder and CEO of The Awakening Begins and the Collective Planetary Impact Network. With expertise in marketing, business, technology, human optimization, and consciousness expansion, he is the creator of the reality creation process, a multi-dimensional mind hacking method to create rapid shifts in life and business. His work as a consciousness systems integrator is known across 5 continents for its profound impact, enhancing well-being and quality of life for students of his process. He is a Pleiadian channel and author of the Pleiadian Guide to Navigating Your Reality Creation Process. Aarun works with visionaries and conscious entrepreneurs to help them activate the creative blueprints in the chakras, empowering mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual expansion while living a life they love, creating meaningful planetary impact. Boy, there's a lot there. You're clearly doing a lot. And I just want to give a little backstory as to how I found Aaron. I was watching a post of his and it piqued my interest. I believe you were talking about Hurricane Hilton or Milton, I think.
Yes.
Um, okay. And so I was not aware of any of this before. I would have joined in on this. But it was predicted to be like, I think like a 5 or a 6, like the worst hurricane ever. And so a lot of you guys, a lot of you kind of light workers and people that are kind of aware of their energy and their power around that got together and basically threw a whole bunch of light at this hurricane. And it ended up being like, I don't know, it ended up going to like a 1
It
really
dropped from a
quick. I mean, it
category
just,
5 to a category 1 in less than 24 hours. And it dropped 2 categories within 2 hours of when we started as a collective. And I joined in right about there at
wow.
the beginning. But, keep in mind this is a joint effort between, I think, probably a couple million people. If I add up, the number of people that I saw commenting on different social media posts, some of mine, some other creators as well. The power of the light. Yes, absolutely.
It's incredible. That the way you said it in this post that I watched, it got me. You basically said we flipped the script, and I can't think of anything better. And what I think what you were meaning is that you took. I didn't join and I didn't know about it, but the strategies being used by those on the planet who have been using energy for darkness and to control everybody, you took their strategies, but you flipped it to use it for light, for love, and also to, basically help us create what we want. Um, and so I want you to kind of talk about, I don't know if that was what inspired the Lightworkers Worldwide group or if it was something else, but I'd love to hear you talk about that, because I think you're onto something when you're talking about using this strategy for things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Lightworkers Worldwide group is something that we've had in a couple different capacities. It's evolved over the years, but it's been around for nearly 4.5 years now at this point. As a part of our community, the Ateoa.life community, that is the kind of the hub for our wider reaching group of conscious entrepreneurs and creators. We're called the Collective Planetary Impact Network. It's a wing of our organization. And our app acts as a hub for that. The Lightworkers Worldwide has been a piece of that for many years. Now, over the years, we've done a lot of planetary impact events, showing up when it comes to certain crises or events that are happening on the planet and doing energy work for those, or just general collective energy work for the awakening of humanity. Or I don't know if you're familiar with it, but grid work is a form of anchoring energy into different aspects of the planetary grid, such as the Great Pyramids. So we do this a couple of times a year, actually, with the Great Pyramids as well, getting a large group of people together to meditate and utilizing sacred sites, points on the grid, to enhance the flow of energy for humanity and our planet in a positive direction. But I want to touch on a couple of key principles as to why this is important, how it works, and how anyone can get involved anywhere from their own space. You don't have to be part of a group to do it. You can do this on your own. By doing that, you're going to be part of a larger collective group that is doing it, but you don't have to actually sync up with them in the physical world per se. So in contrast, essentially, we steer the energy of our being through the perceptions that we choose. A simple principle that I kind of consider to be a foundational principle for life and manifestation and creation of everything from your business, your relationships, to our collective world at large, is that we can only experience the reality that fits within and through our perceptions of ourself and of the world around us. And for much of humanity, those perceptions have been aligned into darkness, negativity, control systems. You mentioned earlier there's people that try to control or manipulate humanity in dark ways. And yes, while that happens, the primary method they use to do that is to actually steer the perceptions, the belief systems of the greater population. Obviously, you're here to kind of blow open the doors on this and open up solutions into how we can live differently, how we can create different patterns. And I think it all starts in the mind and how we see our own selves and our own power. So one of the indicators for this is, this might be a little bit fringe, but weather manipulation. And this is actually a method that those who control the general population use to evaluate whether or not the population is in alignment with their prediction programming. Is they put the weather app, it's on your clock, it's on your desktop widget, it's on your phone, it's everywhere, it's showing up in the corner of every TV screen. That little weather prediction is suggesting to each and every human being what the weather is going to be. Through that suggestion, if we just accept it passively, then we lend our creative force energy to manifest that particular weather pattern. This is just with weather. This also happens with world events, all kinds of situations, all kinds of circumstances. It affects your personal life. The power of suggestion is absolutely enormous. And most people are unaware of it, live their life thinking that's the way reality is, and their energy contributes to the overall creation. Now, it's important to note that those who want to control the overall planet don't have access to their own life force within themselves. That's why they're afraid. That's why they want to control those who do. So, in essence, they've disconnected from the cosmic source. They've disconnected from the core energy of this universe. You might call it God, you might call it source, you might call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. They've disconnected themselves from the order of creation. And in order to have any impact, they need to then manipulate those who are still in connection with that source of creation. So they do that through the power of suggestion. And through that power of suggestion, they can manipulate many world events, including weather. Now, yes, they use things like other weather manipulation technologies that influence it, cloud seeding, etc., all of those things. Those are kind of secondary. The core frequency that actually makes the impact, we're all probably familiar with the fact that magnetics makes the impact into manipulating weather. They use magnetism to do it. The core frequency that emits the magnetism to do it is actually the human life force energy field, the collective of all 8.5 billion of us on the planet. So in a small group, a couple million people actually shift out of that prediction program paradigm and choose to put our energy consciously in a different direction, we can have a massive, radical, and rapid impact. Now, I've seen this personally in my life. Little story about this. There was a group of about 20 of us. We were out in the desert out in Baja California, Mexico, area of the desert, middle of summer. It doesn't rain. It's very dry. And it was really hot. We had a retreat out there. So someone said the idea, why don't we just manifest and put our collective energy together that we can make it like gently mist and bring the temperature down? So we did that. Every morning we would start our morning off with a meditation, and we include that as an intention. Every day, that entire week, that's exactly what would happen. It wouldn't pour rain, but it would just gently rain enough to dampen everything, cut down the dust, and drop the temperature 10, 15 degrees, and leave the rest of the day quite nice. And what was interesting was the people that lived there said that that was an anomaly. That didn't normally happen, especially just every
Wow.
single day that we were there. And then before and after the retreat was over, it was 7 days, before and after the retreat was over, that was no longer the case. It went back to the normal weather patterns. I've seen this happen with weather in my own life, blizzards, snowstorms, being able to change the weather pattern based on what we need, particularly when I deleted all the weather widgets and stopped participating with my energy. And I invite everyone that's listening to this to stop participating with their energy as well. Tune out of not only the weather, but all the prediction programming mechanisms. And then it comes down to this. What do you choose to create with your energy? If your energy is not going to be manipulated by prediction programming, what kind of world do we want? Well, we want a world where people are free. We want a world where there's greater love. We want a world where there's positivity. And the core thing of this is the only reality we can experience is the one that fits within our perceptions, which means our perceptions actually have to shift into a paradigm where there is no negative world, and put the power back where it belongs, which is with the people. Take that and then create the world that we choose. So I have a question for you, Addie. What is the world that you choose? If you could define it in a couple of words,
Just
it'd be free.
free. Free and um, just clean, like clean intention, which is happy. Yeah, I mean, I know those are not the most exhilarating words, but that's it. Just ease, clean, free,
Exactly. It's simpler than we
fun,
think that it
fun.
is, right? We often make it
Yeah,
complicated, like we have to go into this whole strategy to work against the darkness. But what that does is actually line our energy up, pouring it and fueling the darkness
yeah,
when we try to work
right.
against it. So what this group of people did with Hurricane Milton was simply step back and say, what do we want? We want a world where Florida was safe. That was it.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
way in which we did that was there's a lot of energy in a natural storm or a unnatural storm that's being manipulated. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of powerful energy in that storm. So what we did was connect to that powerful energy. Now, a simple rule of energetics is energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed.
right.
If you push against a certain energy, you're actually contributing to it and creating it. You're saying, yes, it's there. Now we push against it. So rather than push against the storm, push it away, try to manipulate it, instead, simply connecting to it, saying, okay, this is here. Let's take the energy away from that, put it into something else. So what I invited everyone to do in that TikTok post was to connect our chakra system, which is a toroidal field. Each chakra runs in a rotational field, just like a hurricane. So it's the same mechanism of energy happening there. So it's actually very easy to do, in contrast to some more complex negative energies that are a little bit more difficult to handle. By connecting with a natural energy that is not inherently negative. There's nothing inherently bad about a storm, right?
Correct.
So we're simply connecting to it, taking the energy that has been pooled there and all of the energy that was surrounding it with the collective fear, people being worried about the government manipulating the storm and all this stuff, people being worried about all these different things, people worrying about their safety or their family and friends' safety that were in the area. Taking all of that energy that is wrapped up in that storm and bringing it into our chakra system to simply empower the chakra in a different direction. Empower that energy, bring it into ourselves, and be the conduit that steers it somewhere else. Now, you might be familiar with the concept that, people who are trying to control this paradigm and system, they create events that generate fear or worry or anxiety or stress, whether it be economically or in our earth plane, in the weather, and whatever it is that they're doing. And they utilize that fear-based vibration to power themselves. So if that's what they're gaining from it, is the fear-based vibration, and they're using that to empower themselves and further their agenda, what if we to step in between them and the thing they've created to generate fear and take it first? That's what I invited everyone to do in that video. by taking it first, not looking at it as neither good nor bad, but just recognizing there is a powerful energy there. It's been created. Let's embody it, take it, and direct it into something new. So then what I invited everyone to do was focus into, what do you want to create? Is it something, most people in their average life, they can't do anything about the people that are going to be hurt by a storm down there on the coast. They're not in the area. They don't have the resources. They're not in someone that can go out and actually help with the disaster. The average person doesn't have the ability to do that. If you do have the ability to do that, great. Go help tangibly. But if you don't, sitting there thinking about how terrible it is contributes to it energetically. So instead, if you can connect to that energy, embody the power that's there, and then redirect that power into something else in your life. This is why I asked at the end of that video, what is one thing or two things or three things you can do that creates a positive impact in your own life, your community's life, or your family's life immediately? Take that energy and pour it into something else. Turn it from a natural disaster or an unnatural disaster into a constructive form of powerful energy through our own internal choice and creation. So it comes back to that choice. What do we choose to do with our energy? Do we choose to allow it to be manipulated and sit in fear? Or do we choose to actually put it in a positive direction? And this can be applied to anything. It can be applied to war. It can be applied to natural disasters. It can be applied to, socio-economical events. Anything where there is a creation of what we would look at as a negative vibration, recognizing that in truth there is no positive or negative. It just is the totality of energy. And bring that energy and put it somewhere else. That was the core idea that I shared in that video. It's something that we've been working with as a collective for, at least I've been involved in for more than 9 years now. And working with people tangibly to teach people how to do this and how to do this in their own personal lives, like their business, to create meaningful impact or to transform the way their relationships work or whatever it is that they want to build that's positive in the world. I've been teaching people how to do that for the last 5 to 7 years. And it's really, really great to see so many people now aware that this is possible, waking up to the fact that we can actually choose where our energy is going and then create different things. Because the way out of this whole matrix control system is to stop acting like we're in the matrix control system and just go create something different. Stop fighting against it, which therefore lends it our energy, and just go create more different things. That's what they're actually afraid of. They don't care if you want to fight the matrix system, great. They love that. You're giving it all your energy. Yep. If you just want to live it, if you just want to live in that matrix control system like a bot or a slave in the whole system and you have no idea what's going on, same thing. That's great. You're giving it all your energy. What they're afraid of is people that have enough guts to turn around and just walk out and go create something entirely different with 100% of their mind, 100% of their consciousness, 100% of their emotions, no longer be emotionally involved or attached or reactive to the situation. This is why they create world events that get everyone to react. Get everyone to go, oh my gosh, look at this terrible thing. There you go. You just gave it all your energy. And that's what we need to stop doing.
Oh, sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I've heard this before, but you can never say that enough because it's so easy to kind of forget what you're saying when you're in the middle of, a world event, say, for example, a hurricane. So, I feel like your job is never ending because we can never hear it enough because we can use, we could always use that reminder of how it actually works. Like I'm listening to you and I'm going, duh, I need to keep remembering that, it's just energy. It's not positive or negative. So thank you for continuing to tell people that.
It's a never-ending story, and it's easy to forget. And, let's apply this to a more personal end of life, right? A situation comes up that makes someone stressful. We immediately react to that. We change our breath. This is why I work with people with things like breath work. That's part of our process that we work with people on to empower conscious mastery. Because immediately something stressful comes up, you start thinking about the worst possible outcome. You start giving that your energy. You start reacting to it. You tighten your breath. And the moment we do that, whatever event that was, whether it was a situation at work between a coworker or your boss said something mean or your partner is going through something that's creating a conflict in the relationship or there's a financial situation, just in your personal daily life. We can react to those situations with tension, and we tense our breath. Our thoughts start thinking worst possible outcome. Our emotions start going into worry. And the moment we do that, our mind, our body, our cortisol levels, our brain, literally every aspect of our physical body, our mental body, and our emotional body become subservient to whatever that negative event is. That situation now has 100% control over everything that is sacred and yours. Nothing else should be inside of your mind but you. But now that situation is taking over your mind. Nothing should control your emotions but you. This is why I go by Commander Aarun on TikTok and all my socials. It doesn't mean I'm in command of anything or anyone outside of myself. It is my personal goal to be in command of how I think, how I feel, to know where my energy is going, and to put it into what I choose, rather than allowing myself to be manipulated. So to be in command of oneself. The moment we go into worry, stress, fear, reactivity, the moment we react to something outside of ourselves in that kind of a fashion, we are literally saying, I choose to be the slave of whatever the situation is. We give our power over, right, and we become full of fear, full of reactivity, anger, resentment, whatever it might be, worry, lack. We become full of all of that stuff instead of full of who we are. And the word fulfillment is a very interesting word because it means to be fulfillmente. Mente is the root word of mind. So when people talk about being fulfilled or experiencing fulfillment, they're literally trying to say that their mind is full of something. What's it full of? For most people, it's full of matrix programming, traumas of the past, limiting beliefs, things that tell us we're small, where you're just one person, you're just that one kid from that one town, and what kind of impact are you ever going to have in the world, right? All of these programs that we receive throughout our experience of life, that's what we're full of. But that's not us. That's not who we really are. So the core principle, another core principle I work with, is to come back to the truth of who we really are before this world told us who to be, and become full of that. And that is a very empowered being, a being that doesn't know limitation, a being that doesn't know fear. It's very much a child. That's why we do inner child work. And, it's been said, you need to return your consciousness to that joyous curiosity of a child to bring out a greater positive vibration, and then to live that out in the world with curiosity for solutions. I love what you're doing on this channel because you're literally out here looking curiously into all the possible solutions and then sharing them with the world. I think it's a beautiful thing. And we need more of that. We need absolutely a lot more of that to forget all the problems and focus on the solutions.
Absolutely. That, and I think, obviously you're right on about you just turn in a different direction. Trying to fix the current systems is a waste of time. Turn in a different direction.
It is.
Yeah.
On that note, this is a conversation I have with every person I work with before we engage in doing any kind of work is, are we going to be fixing things or are we going to be creating things? Because in the world we want, there's nothing to fix.
Right.
But if we spend all of our time trying to solve problems and fix things, then we are planting seeds of problems and things to fix. And I got to see this in case studies, which is very interesting because I worked as a business consultant for many years. I ran a tech business and a digital marketing agency. And now I do the work that I do here, and I see the same paradigm. You can have two different people, both in the same situation, going through the same experience. They need to take the same steps and actions to change their experience and create something different in their life. I'll use the example of two business owners. They both want to create a business that has a positive service that they share. They're both in the same niche. They're both struggling with the same issues. They both have the same bottlenecks in the business, and they both have the same goals. One person, their desire is to create a beautiful business that impacts lives in a beautiful way, that serves their clients in a beautiful way, and they want to create a beautiful life for themselves, their kids, their family member along the way. That's their motivation. The other person's motivation to take the actions is that their business is failing, their finances are in trouble, their revenue is low, there's issues, they're not able to serve their clients fully, they're not satisfied with their business, and they want to fix all of that. Both of those people can take the exact same action steps Which one do you think actually gets there?
Yeah, the first one.
Exactly. But 98% of people are the second one. It's about 2% of the population. If I pose this as a question, which I do in all of my interviews, I pose this as a question. I give people two choices, two paths. You're going to do this work on your business or yourself or your chakras or your mindset or you're reprogramming your energy, whatever it is. You're going to do this work. Which path are you going to take? Are you here to create this beautiful end result that you want, or are you here to fix all the problems that you feel like are in the way? Most people say, I'm here to fix all the problems that are in the way so I can get going. They will fix all those problems, but this aligns their perceptions into the idea that there are problems. So by the time they fix problem number 1, 2, and 3 that they already identified, they're focusing all of their energy, all of their perceptions into the world of problems, so that's all they can see, because the only reality they can experience is the one that fits within that scope of perceptions. And if the scope of perceptions says that there can be problems, then there will be problems. It's literally like, do you look to the right or the left? And you're going to see what's on the right or the left. And instead, to focus on what we actually want to create doesn't mean there's not problems. It just means when they come up, we don't give them more energy. We just kind of invite whatever that problem is to become part of the solution instead of stopping creating the solution to go and then fix the problem. And the reason this happens is, think of our education system. Right at 3, 4, 5 years old, they put us in school. What's the first thing they have you doing? Solving problems.
Right.
They start you right off solving problems. You go to a marketing class in college to learn how to run a business. What's the first thing they tell you to do? Identify the people who have the problems that you want to help them solve. It's all about problem solving. So we live in a world that's defined by problems. From the entrepreneurship landscape all the way to the educational landscape. Then look at people that do quantum healing or energy work or therapists or doctors. They're all here solving problems, and all the clients think they're going to go to these professionals to get their problems solved. The basis of those interactions is founded in there being a problem. So we can never live in the world of solutions because those interactions don't exist. If we go create the world of solutions, then you don't need all those fix-it people. Instead, you need creative people. But what's happened to creative people? Throughout the education system, the creative gets marginalized. Throughout the business world, the creative gets marginalized. The creative, authentic, expressive person gets pushed they have to push that version of themselves aside to compete and succeed in a problem-based world.
Yeah, completely spot on that. And would you say that you find, I mean, this is what's going through my head here, is that because we are living in so much of this, it's an extreme habit that we have in regards to turning to the problems and trying to fix those. So how do you address that with people when you know that it's just like this stubborn habit that they have going on?
Well, let's first address the fact that it's like a 10,000 year habit. Okay, like this has been going on. Humanity has been conditioned into this for a very, very long time. This isn't new. It's largely a part of the mindset. Real quick pause. Is my video froze on your end?
It is froze on my end.
I'm just gonna reset my
now
camera just to make sure.
No problem.
We'll just pause the conversation for just a moment.
Okay. I can't get my lighting right. Oh, there you are.
All right,
it's
we're
good
back.
to see you again. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, it's a 10,000 year issue, and I think that's a prerequisite to recognize, is that it's not new. It's been happening for a long time. And to not beat ourselves up for it. But then the approach is to, every time you recognize, am I taking this action in order to solve a problem? Or is my motivation to create a solution? The action step itself might be very similar. To use the example of the business clients that I used to work with a lot, the action step might be very similar. You're going to create a product. You're going to post on your social media so people can find you. You might write some blog posts. You might send some email campaigns. You might get on and do some interviews. You might go, have the same conversations with the potential clients you're going to work with. You're going to do all those action steps. But you do it from the perspective of, oh my gosh, there's a problem. I got to do this to solve this problem. Or do you do this from the perspective of, oh my gosh, there's this exciting vision that I'm building and I'm going to collaborate with beautiful people along the way to do it. And it's going to be so much fun. And that's what I choose. And along the way, you're going to run into the same hurdles. It's just that shift of approach that makes such a massive difference for most people. So to answer your question, how do we get out of that habit? Because it is a habit. We're conditioned into it. It's not what we're born with, though. Go back to when we're age 3, 4, 2 years old. You're playing with little toys on the floor. Were you solving problems? Or were you just having fun?
Nope. Right.
So this is something that gets introduced over time, and about the time we're, a young teenager, it really begins to set in. And I also think this is the reason that adolescents go through such a rough period, is because they're actually flipping from what is a magical experience of life into this beat down, oppressive box where everything is just a problem. And it's absolutely depressive. And who wants to do that? So teenagers act out and they're all mad about it because everyone's trying to force them to become an adult and start solving problems when that's not natural. It's not natural. So the first step is to get back to answering the question of who was I before I was told that I needed to do all of this? Who was I? What did I want? What did I desire at that point? How do I create more of that emotion in my life now?
Yeah.
We look at this at a planetary level. We started off talking about the hurricane, right? We look at this planetary level of catastrophic events that are happening, and the news has got all this bad stuff going on, and we don't know what's going to happen with the elections and this person and that person and all this energy of uncertainty. But if we zoom out of that, what do we want? Most people want a world where they can play and enjoy themselves and spend time with people they love, and that's about it. How they do that, the one person's outdoorsy and wants to go do it outdoors. The other person's, likes the city and wants to go do it in the city. Like, who cares? Who cares how you want to do it? But that's the core thing. Right. So the foundation is a life that you love. How do we live a life that we love? The focus is to start on focusing on creating that life right now in every moment. But how do you do that when your nervous system is completely screwed? Everything is a trigger. Everything makes you feel powerless. The world's set up to seemingly work against you, not for you. And it's just this people get constantly beat down again and again and again, right? And that's where it becomes a real challenge. And that's where mastery of the mind comes in. This is why I work with the chakra system. I don't know if you're familiar with the chakras. Are you?
Generally, I'm not any kind of expert, but I have general knowledge of it.
Absolutely. It's why I work with the chakras, because the chakras act as a structure of how our energy flows. For example, the solar plexus energy is all about how we empower ourselves. And if someone feels disempowered, that disempowering event that made them feel disempowered, maybe it was when they were a kid, someone told them to shut up. Maybe they got bullied. Whatever it is. Whatever the situation is that created that original moment, it lodges in the solar plexus, for example. And that creates a distorted structure there that keeps people's energy flowing out into the world, recreating that same experience over and over and over. And they set about to solve that problem because it doesn't feel good to be disempowered. So they're constantly trying to fix either that in their world. They're constantly trying to fix that in other people. Or if they get self-reflective with it, they constantly try to fix themselves. This is why the self-development community is absolutely screwed, because everyone's out here trying to fix themselves, heal themselves, work on themselves, and all of that has the implication that you're broken. In order to have the experience of healing, there must first be the prerequisite creation of being broken. It's a loop. You can't get out of it. So the response to that is you need to create something that feels whole. What feels whole? Your empowerment. So instead of trying to fix disempowerment, what if we create empowerment? How do we cultivate that in our daily life? How do we empower the solar plexus to sit in a different structure, a structure that creates what it originally created, which was empowerment? Children are naturally empowered creatures. They're little daredevils, right? They're also naturally very creative. Yes. They're also naturally very expressive. Now, some people grow up in this world at a very young age. They begin to adapt those due to experiences. Like you might have a child that seems like really shy, for example. If you look at the environment they were born into, the energy of that environment was oppressive on self-expression. Yeah. Maybe not directly towards them as a child, but maybe towards everyone in the family. There's a general theme of suppressing authentic self-expression. So the child shies away from expressing itself right from day one because that doesn't feel like a safe environment to do so. So this gets started very, very, very young, and we need to actually return to the version of our energy that existed before we were born. You existed before you were born. You were a consciousness, and it was very open, expansive, unprogrammed consciousness. What was that? It was empowered. It was free. Like you said earlier, the core thing is to be free. We get put into this physical body. We come here into this world. There's all kinds of limitations in the experience. By no fault of our own, we end up adapting to those experiences to do the best that we can to survive these negative experiences that say we should be unempowered, we should be limited, we should be less than, etc. That we don't have the power to use our energy as a collective to do magical things like redirect a hurricane. And if you tell the average person that, they'll laugh at you like they're crazy. Hi, everybody that's going to laugh at me like I'm crazy for that. I love you. I hope you figure out and you can find your own power. Go play with the weather and have some fun. But the point is, it's usually met with a negative reaction. Many kids are gifted enough to be able to independently steer the weather. I know I was. If it was at all within the winter months when I was a child, I could think about it and literally tell the clouds to start snowing. And I could make snow happen. If it was within the months where snow could happen anywhere from November to March, I could make it snow within a matter of 24 hours.
And
I was aware of this.
Aware of that.
I was absolutely aware of this. I would literally tell my mother, I'm going to go make some snow clouds. She would laugh because it sounds ridiculous. I could do the same thing with rain. I remember I would go outside and I'd want to go from we lived on a farm. There was a shop and there was the main house, and I would go out to my dad's shop, 6, 7 years old. I'd go out there to, play with woodworking tools and what. He had a wood shop. And it's about, 40, 50 yards from the house. Long enough that if it's pouring rain, you're going to get wet. I remember this acutely like it was yesterday. This one afternoon, I go out there. It's pouring rain. And I'm just like, rain, stop. 10 seconds later, it stops. I walk up to the shop, and then I'm like, rain, start. And it starts raining again. And to me, that was normal. It wasn't until I was about 7 years old I began to discover that this was not how everyone else lived. Because I started to talk about it. And other people started to say, yeah, you didn't control the rain. Just coincidence, man. There came the disempowerment, and it shut all of those abilities off until I was an adult again. And then I went through an excruciating awakening process to bring it back. Now, I think
I watched that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think I watched that story. Did you tell that story on TikTok on a few videos?
I've told it a number of times. So yeah, somewhere in there, it's probably in there in TikTok. But was it the fault of my older brothers and sisters when they told me that, yeah, bro, you can't change the rain? Who are you kidding? Was it their fault? No. They're just going along with the belief system that they'd already gotten themselves into. And what's interesting is a lot of movies portray this. They tell us this. If you look at a lot of movies, you'll have the younger kids can access all of this magic, and then the older people can't access to it. By no fault of their own, they grow out of it in a sense of being forced to limit their perceptions into a limited version of themselves to fit in with a world that says you're limited. So it's really exciting to live in a day and age where millions of people as adults are coming back from that and going, yeah, let's talk about it. And let's go out here and use our energy and create what we want.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the absolute most exciting thing in thousands of years that's happened. And thanks to the technology
Yeah.
that we have today, like TikTok, being able to have conversations about it, it's very helpful because we're able to find the other people that understand this. Because most people, when they reawaken to this as an adult, we're not surrounded by anybody that we can have this conversation with.
Yeah. Honestly, until TikTok, until I got on there, I didn't know how many people had woken. I had no idea.
It's not a small
Um,
number. This is why they want to ban it as well, because it's the one
right.
platform that's not
Right. Because
censoring this conversation.
they're starting to. But yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
And
Uh,
that
it's
is why we created our private community, the Ateoa.life community. You can find it at The Awakening Begins for anyone that's listening, but theawakeningbegins.com.
yeah.
That's our core
I want to
organization.
make sure that. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I want to make sure I get all of everything, all your information in the description of this, so that people know how to reach you
My team will
and take
email any
advantage of what you're doing.
links to you when you post. But um, in the core context of this, we created that community to be kind of an out of the matrix place, off of the typical social media networks, where we can have these in-depth, otherworldly conversations. I just had a group call earlier before this day. My inner circle meets every Monday, and we're literally in there discussing timelines, deja vu, how many times we've been here on Earth as consciousness, because many of us have had multiple lifetimes here. All kinds of cool, crazy stuff that you just can't have in the normal the normal world, right? It's just not an acceptable conversation. I'm really glad that it's becoming a more acceptable conversation. And on the note of our perceptions create our reality, I want to share one more principle.
Okay.
When we view the world, like I just said, the normal world doesn't accommodate this conversation. What do we create? We create a world where there's a bunch of people that live in that place where there is no magic and they're just not open to this experience. So when we look at the world and we say, oh my gosh, there's so many people that are still asleep. There's only a few of us that are awake. We create a world where there's so many people that must be asleep. They have to stay there. So my challenge to anyone listening to this is, what if we could say that we choose a world where everyone can wake up really fast, really easily, and it can be a beautiful transition for them. It doesn't have to be a hard journey. It can be the exact transition that they need. But everyone that would like to be awake, can do it very quickly and very easily. And if we create that kind of world, we take the weight from our end off for everyone else. We're no longer limiting the general population, saying most of them are asleep. I want to tell a story about how I saw this physically play out in my life. There are some friends who very much 3D paradigm, very much traditional American mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I would bring up occasionally the conversation of this type of thing. Timelines, quantum stuff, and it would always be met with this reaction that was like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. You're just being crazy, man. Like, always met with this dissonant reaction. And I kind of viewed them as, well, they're these people that are just, stuck in the matrix. That's just where they'll be, whatevs. And about a year passed and I hadn't really interacted with them at all. I moved places, was living somewhere else, and had no real reason to interact with them anymore. During that year, I came to the awareness of what I just shared, that if we view other people as limited in our perceptions, then we force them to play out that role for ourselves in our life. If we view the general population as being asleep, then in our manifestive creative ability, we are asking for them to be asleep. If you view, this applies to personal relationships as well. If you view a person in your life as being that negative person that's just always down on everything. Or maybe you've had a traumatic experience with a family member and you just view them as this bad individual. They're always just going to be there. There's no room for healing. There's no room for growth. There's no room for change, because every time you meet them, you're meeting them with the expectation that they're still going to be that person. But somewhere along the way, I've changed. Imagine somewhere along the way, you've changed. Somewhere along the way, whoever's listening to this, your life has changed. You've grown. But why do we meet other people in the expectation that they haven't grown? That they're still going to be who they were last year or last month or
I
last
can't
week?
speak. I mean, for me, I think I do it out of fear. You're making a really good point right now, but I think I do that out of fear of they're not going to change, so I'm not going to get my hopes up.
Exactly. Your fear of disappointment. But is our fear of being disappointed or maybe being hurt by them or whatever it is, that fear becomes greater than our desire to allow them to be free.
Right.
So it becomes safer if they stay in their limited paradigm where we've known them to be and nothing changes. That becomes safer. So we leave it there. We leave them there, and we just keep this construct in our perceptions that they're in the limited spot, we're in the growth spot. All the normal people that are stuck in the matrix, and then there's those who are awakening. And why are there so many people that are stuck in the matrix? Because all the people who are awakened to their power believe that there's a bunch of people stuck in the matrix. We keep putting the ones who are in controlling this timeline, we keep putting them there. We call them elite. Let's stop.
Yeah, right.
They're not
right.
special. They just figured out how to direct all of our energy because we weren't doing it. So they did it for us. Good for them. Because if we were fool enough to allow something else to direct our energy, we were fool enough to allow something else into the sacred space of our mind, our spirit, our emotions, and our body, allow something else to direct the way that energy went, then shame on us. It should have happened. That's why it happened. Because we were dumb enough to be fooled.
Yeah.
So it happened. It's okay. Let it be. Now, we shouldn't get mad at it because it's our fault. We let that in. And we might have been born into it, but still we let it in.
Yeah.
We didn't know any different, so we're innocent in that place as well. But so are all the people who manipulate. They're innocent as well because we consented to it. Somewhere along the way. As a collective especially. So we withdraw our consent and we focus our energy somewhere else. Now, going back to these individual interactions with people who live in that limited place, if we can suddenly say, well, I choose to see that person as capable of completely going through their own awakening. And it can happen overnight. All of a sudden you go and you meet that person and they're changing, they're evolving. So the friends that I spoke about, they were very resistant to any of this information, these kinds of ideas. Manifestation, anything, energy, vibration, frequency, Nikola Tesla, none of that stuff was like in their paradigm at all. And then I went away for a year and I adopted this principle that I just shared in my life with everyone. Over the course of that year, everyone in my life transformed. All the people that mattered to me in my life transformed. One of those was a very close family member that for 10 years I had viewed as this negative person in my life. I went back home, come to find out for the last 10 years, they had been trying to do the work to heal and to grow and to become a better person, but I had no idea. I couldn't see that part of them because I would always just expect that when we interact, it's going to be like, I would get all tense and, going home for Christmas being like, this is going to be a shit show. Get ready. And then it would be because that's the paradigm. That's the only paradigm they could relate to me in.
Yeah.
When I said, they can grow, they could be different, I'm going to let it be up to them. I'm going to be myself and I'm going to show up like I don't care. All at once I discovered that for the last 10 years, they'd been trying to do the growth. And they were finally able to show up in the version of themselves that was actually growing. And it was the most magical moment when I realized, and also heartbreaking moment when I realized that I had been imprisoning them in their relationship with me into a limited version of themselves that they had outgrown 10 years ago that they didn't want to be anymore, but they had to be. Because that's what I expected from them. So to set them free, allow them to finally stop playing the role of the bad guy in my life and start playing the role of the good guy in my life. And that's what I wanted all along. That's what they wanted too. Jeez. But we couldn't let that happen until both of us dropped the act that we were carrying from the past and chose to actually be who we are now and allow that to be seen. Same with the friends. I come back from this trip away and I start talking about quantum shifting and timelines and Nikola Tesla, just bring it up a little bit. And they respond to it in a completely different pattern. And I'm like, wait a second. I thought you guys didn't believe in this stuff. And they're like, what do you mean? Like the 963 manifestation, everyone knows that. That's just how life works, man. And I'm like, wait a second. What happened here? Because a year ago, they were dying on the hill that was a bunch of woo-woo shit that didn't matter. Excuse my French. And now they're like, everyone knows that. Why wouldn't we know that? That's just how life is. That's just how it is. They had no recollection of going through an awakening, though.
Wow.
And this is what I call the passenger in the reality. There's two types of people here. One is someone that chose to have a lifetime of being a creator. We're the paradigm creators. So for us, we'll go through an awakening, and it's this whole experience. We got to figure out who we are, our power. We got to actually shape the world. That's one group of people. The other group of people is the passenger. So if you imagine our planet is like a vehicle. It has people in the driver's seat. It's a collective. There's many of us. And they steer the timeline. And if those people decide it's going to be a timeline of disempowerment, then it's an absolute mess. Then there's everyone that's in the passenger seats in the car. They're not driving the car. They're just along for the ride, having whatever experience the drivers decide is going to happen. They don't want to be a driver. They don't want to be a creator. They just want to live and enjoy their life. So when the paradigm shifts, they won't realize anything changed. It's just the fabric of the universe now is different, and for them, it's not important to remember what was and what is now and the difference between the two. They're just navigating from one place to the other. And this is a group of people, most people fall into this category of they have a desire for something positive in their life. Desire for a greater amount of love. That's literally every single person in the world, whether you think they're a bad person or not. Inside, that's probably what they want. They want love. They might not know how to go get it. They might be toxic about it. They might not know how to create it, whatever, but that's what they really want. So everyone has a desire for greater positive things in their world. If the people that are driving the timeline choose to allow everyone to access that and stop putting people in the box of having to be stuck in the matrix, then everyone can gravitate towards that. And the moment they're ready to allow it in, it'll just happen in their life. And their life will become magical and full of beauty. And they won't necessarily know why. They don't need to know why. They're just now enjoying the ride instead of being freaked out by the ride of life. And then there's those of us that know what happened. We went through this awakening to become empowered and to understand, to create actively, to go and choose to create a new world. And we see, oh, well, the current people that know how to do this, that are creating the world, we don't like the world they're creating, we'll create something new. So we go and create something new. This is what I think humanity is on the wavelength of doing. So we're creating new solutions. How does society need to look over the next 50 to 100 years? What is community going to mean? And I think we're on the brink of a massive, massive breakthrough with the advent of the new technologies we have available and what people can do with them and the ability for us to communicate and coordinate. Those of us who are here to shape the future, literally, it's time for us all to step up and do that. And not everyone has to. Recognize that there's people who've chosen to be a passenger here, and that's totally cool. Like, more power to them. They're doing life the better way, just chilling. But at a certain point, imagine that this planet is a vehicle, like I said, and there's passengers in the car. We've all been passengers in a vehicle that's driven by these people that want to control everything. These dark forces, we can call them. Are they really that bad, or did they just, after a few thousand years, just start deciding to drive the car recklessly? So they're driving the car recklessly. Now, if you were in a car and there's, maybe a van, there's 15 of you in the van, and the driver just decides he's done driving, he's going to be a reckless idiot now. He's going to risk everyone's lives and just drive stupid. And he's getting a thrill off the fact that every time he almost wrecks the vehicle, everyone freaks out and gets scared and starts panicking in the back seat. That's what he's living for at the moment, is how can he freak out his passengers as much as possible. All right, now at some point, one of the other passengers is going to be like, all right, dude, get out of the driver's seat. I'm getting in because you're being stupid. That's the current moment on Earth. There's a collective of people saying, all right, folks, we're taking over the driver's seat because you're done. You're done being stupid with it. We're going to drive. We're going to take this vehicle of this planet and do something a little bit more productive with it, because that's what we choose to do now.
Such amazing ways of explaining this. You really break it down to make it so simple.
Because it's simple. We make it complicated.
It is. You're right. You're right. The truth is simple.
Yeah.
Before we go, because I know that we're probably almost at our time limit. I'm not sure about that, but
looks like the hour is about up.
Okay.
But no worries on time. I usually book myself an extra 30 minutes.
Okay. So I have a quick question for you, unless you were not done.
No, go for it. I pretty much summed up that point.
Okay. Yeah, it was beautifully said. And it feels beautiful too when I'm listening to you. Just very, very calm. But anyway, I want to know a little bit about your Pleiadian work. Kind of what, I just started learning about the different kind of galactic groups. And so can you expand on that a little bit about how why you kind of lean in that direction? Or
Yeah. So for me, it's quite a personal story. I don't mind sharing it.
Okay.
So when I was 17 years old, I had a near-death experience. This wasn't the first time I had contact with the Pleiadians, but before I share that near-death experience and how I remembered the fact that I'm connected with the Pleiadians, I want to share just a little construct or a concept on like what the Pleiadians are. So for those who don't know, the Pleiadians are a group of galactic beings from the star cluster of the Pleiades. There's many galactic beings here on the Earth, both incarnated as humans and coming in from their other dimensional forms. People see these, they have galactic contact experiences. You can check out Dr. Greer's work. He's doing amazing work on helping people understand that we can initiate contact. I've participated and led some of those groups. It's been absolutely amazing. But there's several layers to contact with what we might call extraterrestrials. And the first layer is, Dr. Greer outlines the first 5 layers of contact. I forget them all, but the 5th one is human initiated, where we say, hey, galactic beings, we're over here. We want you to come visit us right here, right now, at this time. And doing that in a CE5 event is absolutely a magical experience, but you have to be open to it. And the challenging experience that happens there is these galactic beings exist in the full authenticity of who they are. And you ever wonder, when you're being really authentic, it'll trigger certain people? It'll piss them off because they're not being authentic, and they're butthurt because you are being authentic, and that highlights the fact that they're living in limitation and it doesn't feel good. So when we experience galactic contact, those beings are existing in the full authentic expression of who they are. And for us to actually experience contact with them will highlight every area in ourselves where we are not existing in our full power. And that can feel not so good for someone that's living in a limiting experience. And this is why some people have a negative contact experience. They'll experience it something bad because they were brought face to face with something that is existing in the full extent of their power. And it scared them because it made them recognize their own power that they're not using. Mm-hmm. So in essence, what I want to share on this is the Pleiadians. I'm also to do a lot of work with the Arcturians. Why I call myself a Pleiadian. Most people have lifetimes, their consciousness has existed multiple times on Earth and probably elsewhere as well. In my case, I've had many lifetimes in the Pleiades, many lifetimes in Arcturus, many lifetimes on Earth that I'm aware of, and some other places as well. But for the purposes of this conversation, we'll talk about Arcturus and the Pleiades. If you look at it like, where do you live, Addie? What state do you live in?
Colorado.
Colorado. Okay.
Colorado.
Were you born there?
Yes.
Okay, so you're in Colorado. You're born in Colorado. You can call yourself a Coloradoan. You can say you're from Colorado. All right.
Right.
Um, Now, if you moved and you went somewhere else,
Hmm.
maybe you moved to Washington State or something, and you live there for 40 years, and someone asks you, where are you from? You're going to say Washington at that point. And then you might
Right.
add on, but I was originally from Colorado, right? So in essence, when I say I'm a Pleiadian, when I was in the Pleiades in that lifetime, I made the conscious choice because they exist at a much higher, we can call it a higher vibration, a more expanded vibration of awareness. And they can actually choose kind of what happens more so than we do in our human experience because they're aware of the power of choice. So from that experience,
Right.
I chose to actually come and have an experience in the human world on Earth.
Yes.
I also made that same choice from Arcturus, but in between, I made a choice to go from Arcturus to Pleiades and then to Earth, if you put it in a linear time format. Those civilizations don't live in linear time. Their entire existence spans the entire existence of Earth before and after. So the linearity is not important, but if you were to put it into linear terms, it would be like I lived in Arcturus, then I moved to the Pleiades, then I moved to Earth. Now, just like if you moved from Colorado to Washington, you would still be able to remember and have all your knowledge that you gained while you lived in Colorado, right? But when we go through the incarnation process, we lose most of our memories
Yeah.
because of the programming. We become filled full of this world's ideas instead of who we are, so we forget who we are. So in essence, that's how I came to Earth, was from the construct of the Pleiades, choosing to have a lifetime on Earth. Brought with me all the knowledge that I had there, just like you normally would. But also went through the process of becoming filled full of this world's ideas instead. And this started when I was a child. Up until about age 6, when I also lost the ability to interact with the weather and the elements and do all kinds of cool stuff. I would experience contact with my Pleiadian friends, you could call them, beings that I knew from my lifetime in the Pleiades, who are also here interacting on Earth from another dimensional space, and some of them actually embodied here on Earth as well. And I would see the ships come in, literally go and get on them, have experiences, and I could call them in like clockwork. I could ask them to show up. I could do all this stuff. And I didn't know to call them spaceships. I didn't know what to call them. I didn't have words for them. So I tried describing them to my family because my family would ask me where I would go. Like, why you go out in the yard, you lay on the ground, and then you're gone for like a couple hours, and then you come back. Like, what are you doing out there? I would just go lay in the yard and literally go up to the spaceships and have my experience and go talk with my star family and then come back. And so my family would ask, like, why do you go lay out in the yard all the time? But I would literally go to a place where none of my siblings or my family members could see me because I knew it would hurt their mind. And I would lay down
Right.
on the ground, trance in, and transfer my consciousness out. Or maybe do so physically. Anyways, when I was about 7 years old, I tried to explain this to my family and tell them about, well, I'm going with the giant airplanes that have the backward wings in the sky. They were airplanes with 6 wings is what they look like when they come into the physical realm, partially. And you don't see the full disc. You'll see it'll have 6 points. Anyways, that would happen again and again and again. I told my family about it. They're like, yeah, there's no such thing. And I'm like, I'm going to show you next time they come. So literally within that very same week, I come running inside the house. I'm 6, 7 years old. I come running inside the house and I'm like, guys, come outside. You got to see this. And I'm pointing up at the sky. I'm like, look, right here. Here's what they look like. See it? And I have this very acute memory of my sister. She's standing right here to my left behind me. And she says, Josiah, there's nothing there. She couldn't see it. Now, the thing to note is that children are often existing in a vibration to be able to see into multiple dimensions, naturally. Their brain doesn't know to filter out the other dimensions until they notice other people are not interacting with those dimensions. And the brain does this It's very similar to an AI learning function where you expose it to a whole bunch of information and you begin to tell it what's important. So as your brain develops over the first 7 years of your life, you see all the dimensions, but you notice what other people interact with, and that's what your brain decides is important, and it begins closing off perception of all the other frequency bands till you're left with probably about 5 frequency bands that actually matter, one for each of our 5 senses in our physical world. Now, there's many more frequency bands. Telepathic frequency band, multidimensional vision frequency band. Anyways, that moment is when my consciousness, which up until you're about age 9, between 7 and 9 years old, your consciousness is in learning mode in the physical body. The brain is literally deciding whether or not certain frequency bands are important to interact with. So my sister says there's nothing there. And my brain goes, okay, it's not important, and shuts off that frequency band. They vanished, and I never saw them again till I was 17 years old. And those 10 years were some of the most excruciating years of my life, because I was completely disconnected from, myself, my origins, the life that I was used to. At 17, during those teenage years, I became very suicidal. And didn't really care at all about my life. I was reckless, didn't give a shit about anything. And I almost wrecked a vehicle when I was 17, almost rolled a Jeep. It was in that experience, there was a moment where time froze, and I recognized that I was wrecking the vehicle, that I was about to die, and I was at complete peace with it. And what I'm going to say next might bother some people, but this is the truth in how I experienced. I was raised in a Christian family, so my response to a situation like that is to say a prayer. But in that very moment, I was at complete peace with dying. I was okay with it. I was like, I've lived for 17 years. It's been a fun life. Okay. I had gratitude for my life and was at an absolute peace in that moment of recognizing that I had about 1 second left and I was going to be dead. The Jeep's in midair. It's rolling. I see the trees coming. And it's all slow motion. I said a prayer to Jesus, and it essentially, if I put it in words, it sounded something like this. It was like, Jesus, I had a great life. Thank you. But if I can stay, I'd like to. And in that moment, it felt like someone grabbed me by the shirt collar and just snatched me out of the Jeep. I see my body in the Jeep. I see the Jeep there. It's rolling in slow motion, and this blue bubble goes around it. I go out of my body, and I'm pulled up on board a ship. I didn't know at this time, at the construct, it wasn't made exactly clear to me that it was a ship until I'd been back on a ship about 3 or 4 more times. I finally put this all together. But it's a ship. There's a group of other beings there. Jesus is there because he's the one I asked for. He snatches me up onto this ship. Jesus is a Pleiadian, by the way. The Pleiadians are some of the most progressive of the galactic groups, which means they're the most vocal. They will push the limits of making people uncomfortable and sharing the truth. So there's pretty much between the galactics and the humans, there's a non-interference policy where like the galactics aren't going to interfere largely unless it's a extinction level event. But the Pleiadians are more on the line of we can interfere at least a little bit. Hence why many of the great forerunners of pushing the boundaries of consciousness were Pleiadians. So I pulled out of my body and I'm on board the ship, and I'm getting introduced to, there's a group of people there, and I get this fast forward review of like my life up till that point and what I could do if I stayed, what I could do if I left then, that it was okay if I left then. What was interesting is that year I'd tried to commit suicide at least twice and was unsuccessful. But in that moment of accidentally arriving at the point of death, I was fully okay with it, but something deep inside sparked this tiny desire to live again. And then after this experience, I remember choosing, I said, no, I want to go back. I want to continue this life. You know, it's not been all that bad. It had its shit show moments, but like, let's Let's give it a shot. And then I was dropped back into my body. Right before I was dropped back into my body, it was like I watched that bubble that was around the Jeep, still slow motion moving towards this tree. And I got to see the end result of my body hitting the tree, becoming completely smushed. I would have been dead. And I watched the bubble rewind, like hitting a VHS tape back in the day, rewind a couple of moments. It was like, bzzz. And then I get dropped back into my body. And the profound experience was that I wake up, my vision goes complete white, and it like fades from white to the world that I'm in. And I'm sitting in the Jeep. I'm slumped over into the passenger seat. My hand is like between the dash and the steering wheel, and I'm laying on top of the gear shift. The Jeep is bouncing back and forth. I rolled it going around a curve, so it rolled to the left side. I am around 2 more curves and over a hill is where I am when I come back to consciousness. The Jeep is bouncing. I had gone into the curve going over 75 miles an hour, way too fast for a sharp curve in rural Missouri. And here I am, more than 3 football fields lengths farther down the road, waking back up. The Jeep is bouncing from side to side, literally bouncing between wheels, doing about 45 miles an hour. I wake up from that experience, finish driving into work, pretend like I'm working the whole day because I was exhausted. It felt like I hadn't slept for a week. Every ounce of my body was purely exhausted. And what I recognized later, what's been explained to me by the Pleiadians of how this happened, was I said the prayer, Jesus assisted that process. But essentially within the human body, there is the capacity to emit enough energy to freeze a timeline, to rewind it, and to make a different timeline link up to it. So it's like disconnecting the one that was going to happen and connecting a different one. That's what was done. But the power to execute that shift in timelines comes from within the body. It has to come from the inside out. It can be supported by other beings that can support the process, but the energy needs to come out of the body, not from the outside in order for it to work. This is something we actually support people in doing with our quantum shift exploration sessions that my partner developed, and the reality creation process in our masterclass. We help people develop that gamma frequency within their body to do things like shifting disease, reprogram their mindsets in a moment, instead of making it a slogging journey over years, because this can be recreated very easily. Now, it's not something we can do to a person, but it's something we can help them create the energetic environment in their body where it can happen. And they can allow it to happen. That's what was created in that moment of absolute acceptance of death, but still a spark of desire to change the direction of things. That spark of desire combined with complete allowance of complete acceptance and surrender of what was happening is the energetic vibration necessary to create a quantum shift. Whether it be a quantum shift in your mindsets, changing the way your world's working, resetting the way your perceptions are aligned, or changing a dis-ease, physical ailment, whatever it is. For me, it was a complete change in the actual timeline. Now, what's interesting is I went back to that moment. I looked at the road because I'm a skeptic. I'm like, what the heck happened? I went back. There's the paint on the road from where the vehicle rolled. There's the skid marks of the tire. There's the marks of it in the dirt on the edge of the road. There's even marks on the tree. But the Jeep itself has no scratches. You can't, anything that was inside that bubble had no remnants of the accident. But everything that was outside had the marks of it happening. And this is when I began to understand that there's something bigger, something different. I didn't know what, I didn't know how. And it was several years after that I began to understand more. I reached another point of extreme depression in my life because I'd gone through somewhat of an awakening. I'd learned meditation and, breath work and things like that. And I could use it to regulate my nervous system, but not actually make any change in my life. Like my life was still the same pattern. I could balance the fact that I had a dysregulated nervous system and I had been traumatized throughout my childhood. I could balance the way I felt and my emotions, and I could quiet the negative thoughts in my mind, but ultimately nothing changed. My life continued in the same pattern. I wasn't able to use these tools to actually make a difference in my life. And it was at that point I finally sat down and I reached that level of surrender again. And I found myself back suicidal for now the third time in my life. And I was like, screw this. Like, why is this back again? I thought I just did all this healing work that was supposed to help me out of it. And I got better for a little while. And now I'm back here again and nothing's really changed. And I was just really pissed off and frustrated. So I sat down on the couch that one evening and I said, okay, well, at least if I'm going to kill myself, let me rephrase that so we can edit and post it. If I'm going to off myself, I can do so feeling okay. So I can put myself into a peaceful state. And if I'm going to die this week, at least I can die peacefully. And the strategy that I use my whole life for anyone that's struggling with suicide, I encourage you to implement this, is you can always tell yourself you can do it tomorrow. And then live for today. And that kept me alive for years. So I say, all right, you can do this tomorrow, but today you're just going to meditate and at least make yourself feel peaceful. And then if you're going to die, you can die peacefully. So I sat down on the couch and I meditated. And it had been a couple of months since I had actually tried to do any meditation. And in that meditation, a Pleiadian being shows up to me. And they said, we want to guide you in doing something. I'm like, okay. I literally didn't care about anything at that point. I was very much once again, a space of allowance. Like, I was okay. No matter what happened, I was just going to be at peace. That's the big important thing. So that same vibration. This Pleiadian being shows up, says, I'm going to guide you through a breathing practice. And I got taught a breathing practice that I didn't know. So I just followed along with this counted breath that I was being provided, and then a guided visualization that came with it, which was to eventually bring me to a state out of my body, where I was then asked where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to learn. So I selected a couple of things that I wanted to learn. At this point, I have no awareness of the body anymore. I don't realize my body is still sitting on the couch doing this intense breath rhythm. And this whole experience unfolds that allows me to get the clarity on, many things that happened in my childhood that I was still hurt about, many things that happened throughout my adult life, different experiences that kind of plagued me with questions. And I finally came to recognize that the being that was guiding me was the higher self of a friend that I have here on Earth. And it's actually now, you might be familiar with the idea of spirit guides. Many times those spirit guides are not beings that are not on Earth. Some of them are, but many of them are actually the higher selves they have a human incarnation going on, and their higher self is helping you out, and your higher self is probably helping them out. I did not know this at the time. So it clicked with me, and I said, wait a second. If you're the higher self of this person, then I want to meet the others. Where's everyone else? And they said, okay, come over here. And we literally went into another experience that was on board a ship. And this is when I began to recognize that we were back on a ship. And I'm like, wait a second, this is the same place I was on when that accident happened. Like, tell me what's going on here. And I started to get answers. So I talked to this group of people. There's about at least 9 of them in that experience. And I sat down and I spoke with each one at length, getting a whole bunch of information. And finally, I'm talking to one of them. It was a masculine energy. And I'm saying to him, okay, so I've got this straight. You're the higher self of this person. You're the higher self of that person. You're the higher selves. All the rest of you are higher selves of people that I don't know yet, but you tell me I will meet them if I get my shit together. So where's my higher self? Because he's not here. And the being I was speaking to says, he kind of got really awkward, and he's like, well, he's kind of busy right now. That's kind of literally kind of what it felt like he said. He's like, yeah, your higher self's kind of busy right now. And then comes in the other being that had came to me and guided this whole meditation in the first place, that brought me into this out-of-body state. And she's quite bold, and bold enough to break the non-interference policy and come inject herself into my meditation in the first place. So she steps up and she's like, I'm going to quote. She says, "Don't mince words with him," to the other being. Then she looks at me and says, "When you're not in alignment, your higher self doesn't exist. He's been gone for a very long time, and we're all starting to get worried." Now, the reason she put it in those words, because that's not 100% accurate, but she put it in words that my human brain could understand.
Okay,
but
I get it.
To put it into simpler language, our higher self is who we evolve to be when we expand across all dimensions and fulfill our entire soul's essence.
Yeah.
It's all versions of ourself combined into one. All lifetimes, all knowledge that we ever have combined into one. And that cannot exist if any one part of the entire soul exists in separation from it. In other words, out of alignment, refusing to be connected. And that was the state of being I was in. Buried inside of all of this depression and negative beliefs and toxicity that the world had filled me up with, instead of being full of me. Once again, the same principle we talked about at the beginning.
Right.
And in that moment when those words hit me, it was like a light bulb went off. Imagine a guitar string, like there's 6 strings on a guitar. Imagine one of them's been like pulled off to the side. It's like stuck way over here. Imagine it's suddenly let go and it's like boing, and it comes back to where it's supposed to be. That's what it felt like, ripping through my body. And it was like immediately the experience of communicating with my higher self is there. And in this experience, one thing that the Pleiadians are pretty good at doing is creating a representative external image for the human brain to process. It's not that my higher self's outside of me, because your higher self is actually inside of you. But you can create a representative experience of your higher self being outside of you for the purpose of helping yourself understand things in the human experience, where the human brain is used to an external experience. So my higher self comes in externally, and I begin a conversation with him. And later I come to find out that in the Pleiadian world, he goes by the name Aarun. That's why I go by the name Aarun.
Right.
Through that conversation, I asked a lot of questions, and I got way more answers to things that I needed to know. Finally, at the end of that conversation, he says to me, "We've got about 30 seconds left. Your body is getting very fatigued. You've been doing a breathwork meditation for over 3 hours, longer than you ever have before. We have about 30 seconds left. This time," which, by the way, the time differentiation between the Pleiades and Earth is 7-1. So when they're synced in a linear time experience, like I was doing, every 7 seconds there is 1 second here. So he says, "We have about 30 seconds left. And is there anything else you want to know? Because your body's about to pull you back." And I said, "Yes, can you give me the maximum?" This is literally the words that I used. I said, "Yes, can you give me the maximum dose of knowledge and information that would help me sort my life out?" And his response was, "Yeah." And one of the other beings that's there on the side says, "Are you sure you should give him that? Are you sure he's ready for that?" And he says, "Well, he asked, so it has to be given."
Oh.
And the next thing that I recall is he transfers all of this information to me through my third eye, through what I experienced as a white light, because my brain could not conceptualize all the information at that time. So it just comes in as a blur. And I hear him say, "Go to the waterfall and write this down. Drink lots of water. And he gave me another instruction as well. But I forget what the other one was in this exact moment. There was 3 instructions. One was go to the waterfall, and one was drink lots of water. Anytime you do a lot of integration work, you need to drink a lot of water. It helps the body catch up. There's a waterfall near my house that I would always go sit and meditate at sometimes. I hadn't done it in a couple of months. So I go out there every single week with a note, or every single afternoon with a notebook from that day forward, and I wrote down the reality creation process over the next 2 weeks. The reality creation process, the Pleiadians originally call it the process for the creation of worlds. It's how they architect galaxies from their world. And in our human experience, it's how we can change and reprogram our mindset. It's how we collectively create our world. The first principle is the only reality you can experience is the one that fits within your perceptions. If you can expand your perceptions to see a different world, you can experience a different world. And by that entire process is a structure of information that allows us to reprogram our mindsets. And I began to implement it in my life. My entire life began to change. My business flipped. My tech business is struggling. We flipped. Everything changed very quickly when I began to implement it. It wasn't until about a year after that, maybe 2 years after that, I ended up in Sedona. Met up with a group of people on TikTok and went for a hike in Sedona. On that hike, we hiked to what is known as a Pleiadian vortex. Now, I didn't know that. And I really didn't know the word Pleiadian at that point either. I just knew I was having these interdimensional experiences with beings that were from elsewhere, and that they felt like my soul's family. They felt like home. And that we came here with a purpose. Yeah. We had a mission, and I was doing my best to remember what it was and why I was here. And ever since I was a child, when I was about 2, 3, 4 years old, maybe not 2, but when I was very young, I would look up at the stars. Me and my sister would go stargazing, and I always point out the Pleiades and ask her, which ones are those? I could always spot them, no matter what. And so it's always been with me. I just didn't know it. At this point, I go to this Pleiadian vortex. I find out later. I tell someone this story, and they're like, oh, you went to the Pleiadian vortex. And I'm like, yeah, which one's that? And they tell me where it's at. And they're like, yeah, it's in Boynton Canyon. And I went, okay, so I'm not the only one that's had this experience. They're like, no, we know. People in Sedona that know the portals know. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go hike up to this vortex. We do a meditation. We're hiking down. And on the way down, the Pleiadians connect with me, and I hear, you should sit down. You have 7 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and I leave my body. I didn't sit down, so I fell off the edge of the rocks, and someone caught me. They did that on purpose to make a point that no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, my human vessel will always be protected, even if it's by a complete stranger, which the person that caught me was someone that I just met 2 hours before. Complete stranger.
Wow.
So that was the point. I left my body, went home to the Pleiades, and received the entire chakra process that we now utilize in the Reality Creation Process Masterclass, which is a journey through the chakras to return the chakra blueprint back to its original state, which is the state it was in before this world told you who you were, and the chakra had to deform to match this world, which is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to do that. But then it's also supposed to rewind back when you're ready. It's an intense process, but it's worth it. I then implemented that process while I was in the Pleiades. We finished it. It felt like it took, eons. And then they finally communicated to me, and they said, okay, we finished this process. You see how it works. You see how the chakra blueprints are meant to be used. You see why there's all the disinformation on Earth that limits it to the 7 chakras, because there's actually 13. And when you do the 9 and the 13 versions of the chakras, you actually get the whole system. The 7 chakra system can never sustain itself alone. But that's all we're taught. They showed me all this information. They said, now you got to go back to Earth. You got to finish the plan that you're here to do and teach people this. And you got to do it yourself in your body. And I said, you want me to do this unpacking of the soul blueprint in a meat suit? You got to be kidding yourself. I'm happy. I'm going to stay here. And they said, no, that's not how it works. Your body's waiting for you. You got to go back. And off I went, and I came back into the body. And in the timeline on Earth, it took about 20 seconds, according to the people I was with. in the experience off world, it felt like a couple of years. I came back. Over the next 3 months, I did that process to myself several times, three times over 9 months. And then I decided to record it with a group of people and walk people through how to do it to themselves, which is to create that 0 point space that can change the timelines, like I spoke about earlier, to create that in each of the chakras, putting each chakra back into its original structure, just like in that experience where I almost wrecked, putting the vehicle and myself into a new structure of a new timeline, doing the same thing with our chakras. This resets our creativity, our foundations, our empowerment, our heart, the way we connect to other people, our throat chakra, the way we express ourselves and receive that expression, our third eye, the way we envision the world, being able to envision the world from a place of wholeness, seeing everyone as whole and perfect, seeing our world as whole and perfect, seeing people as empowered, instead of seeing a limited matrix control system, literally seeing a different world and going into that, getting all of our energy out of the game of the limited, broken, fear-based matrix. And then mastering that, which is the crown chakra. So to implement all of this, and after that experience, I was well aware I was a Pleiadian. It was all confirmed. Now, I knew that I was a Pleiadian just before that experience. I'd been learning a little bit about the Pleiadians. I'd seen a video that was a Pleiadian message that really resonated with me. But this brought it all together, and I understood how it worked. After that experience, I was able to do contact events, reconnect in a variety of different ways, and discover that, for example, Dr. Greer's information on contact of the fifth kind, which is humans asking extraterrestrials to come in externally. There is the sixth level of contact, which is integrative and embodied contact. For those who are and do have galactic lifetimes and souls, to bring the knowledge and information from those lifetimes into their body internally, to become the whole integrated higher self here now, to bring all versions of their experience past timelines on Earth, past timelines in other galaxies, to bring it all into the body. Because the human body is magical and it can contain it all. Our DNA is not just three-dimensional. It can contain the full expression of who we are. So this eventually goes into reigniting the DNA blueprints that many listeners of this have probably heard about, that the human DNA was basically reduced from a multidimensional DNA to a three-dimensional DNA. And that all comes back online when we basically choose to fill our body with everything that we are, which includes, if your soul has a galactic timeline, that'll come in. If it doesn't, because not everyone does. Some people, most of their iterations happen on Earth, and that's completely normal. Like, your soul has had whatever set of experiences you've had. Bringing all of that into the body allows you to be whole and then express that into the world through meaningful creations. And that's what we're here to do. So it's long-winded. Wow. It took like 25 minutes to actually tell you the story. But that is the short version of how I discovered I was a Pleiadian. And to make it really short, it comes down to three things: recognition, resonance, and experience. So if anyone wants to know, like, what am I? Am I a Arcturian or a Pleiadian or whatever? Doesn't matter. There's nothing special about being any one of these things. Every part of yourself is completely valid and has equal qualities. So as you want to learn and explore that, you're going to look for what really resonates at an emotional level. The experiences that naturally unfold in your life as you follow what resonates at an emotional level. And then the experiences that feel like a recognition of something that myself and many others can only describe as a feeling of home that makes the word home feel very inadequate to describe. And when you bump into people, places, things that bring that energy, it's often accompanied with a lot of emotion. Pay attention, because there's answers there. You might not like what you find, because sometimes it's very difficult to take it all in and digest what's going on. But it's worth it. And through that, we can become who we are, you know, and we can create a different world. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say I could probably listen to you all day. Um, wow. I know I personally am going to go check all your stuff out and potentially get involved.
Amazing. We got a lot of
There's not,
wonderful things in the community. We do Lightworkers
yeah.
Worldwide events on a regular basis. We're working on setting up something a little more interesting on a continual basis. It's going to be a bit before it happens, but maybe by the time this is published, it'll be out. Um, the Etaowa.life, Etaywa. We'll make sure you have all the links. But real
Yeah.
quick note on the Etaowa word. That is a Pleiadian frequency of light language that means a space for all that is love and a space for all that is life. It's actually the name of the ship that I went onto in all of those experiences.
Wow.
And it's here, and many people have connected with it. We named our online platform after it, and because it's here to facilitate in the online community the same thing, which is that space for all that is love and all that is life, which is also the same thing that the earth is here to do. But we kind of take advantage of that one. So that's another thing we need to stop doing. And see the earth as whole and treat it like it is. But
Right.
yeah, get involved in
Yeah.
the community. Lots to do, lots to explore, lots of people to connect with. On every continent. We have members on every continent on Earth. So come and participate.
Well, thank you so much for your time. You're very generous with the amount of time you gave, and I appreciate everything you're doing. Um, I feel like y the resonance that I feel from when you speak is like nothing else. I mean, it's very clear. You are just saying this. These are your experiences, and thank you. I appreciate it, and
Well, thanks
I
for
look
having me
forward
on the
to
show.